Hi, my name is Emily, and this story is something I never thought I'd have to tell out loud. It's about a moment that shook my entire world, a moment when my own sister humiliated me in front of everyone, and yet, the reaction of her fiancé changed everything in a way no one expected. I want to share this with you because sometimes life hits you in the hardest ways, but the way you stand up after it can define you. Before I share my story with you, I just want to say, your support means the world to me. If you enjoy hearing real-life stories like mine, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I truly love reading them. My sister, Claire, and I had always been close, or at least I thought we were. We grew up in the same house, shared secrets, fought over silly things like clothes or who got the last piece of cake, but we were family. That's what I believed until the day of her engagement party, the day everything shifted. The day started like any other big family event. Claire was radiant, glowing with excitement about her upcoming wedding. Everyone was buzzing with happiness. I was happy for her too, but I had a knot in my stomach that I couldn't shake. See, Claire and I had grown apart over the years, especially after she met Ryan, her fiancé. Ryan was charming, handsome, and had this commanding presence that made everyone listen when he spoke. But I always felt like Claire changed when she was around him, a different person, more distant, less like my sister. Still, I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to celebrate her happiness because beneath it all, I loved her. When I arrived at the venue, the atmosphere was filled with music, laughter, and chatter. The hall was decorated beautifully, and the tables were laden with food. I spotted Claire talking to her friends and Ryan nearby. They looked perfect together, the kind of couple people envied. I approached her, smiling, ready to congratulate her. But instead of the warm hug I expected, Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. She looked past me, almost like I was an inconvenience. Then, right there in front of all the guests, she made a joke about me, a cruel little jab that caught me completely off guard. "You still haven't figured out what to do with your life, have you?" she said with a smirk, loud enough for several people to hear. The laughter that followed was awkward, and my cheeks burned with embarrassment. I froze, not sure how to respond. It felt like my world had been pulled out from under me. I wanted to retreat, to disappear. But before I could say anything, Ryan, Claire's fiancé, stepped forward and looked at me with a seriousness I'd never seen before. He said quietly but firmly, "You're the judge." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. My sister's smirk faded, replaced with a look of surprise and maybe even regret. What did he mean? The words hung in the air, and I could feel all eyes on me, waiting. That moment changed everything. I realized that Ryan wasn't just someone who dazzled crowds. He saw me differently, recognized something in me that Claire seemed to forget. As the party continued, the dynamic shifted. Claire, who had been so confident a moment before, now looked uneasy. I found a quiet place to collect myself and think. That night, I reflected on everything, my relationship with Claire, the pain of her words, and Ryan's unexpected support. It was a turning point. I decided then that I wouldn't let that moment define me. Instead, I'd reclaim my voice, my dignity. Over the following weeks, I started to change how I saw myself and how I interacted with Claire and her circle. There were challenges, confrontations, and moments of self-doubt, but I kept going. Through it all, Ryan remained a quiet ally. He never interfered overtly but always seemed to know when I needed someone in my corner. I learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about respect and understanding. As this story unfolds, I'll share the highs and lows, the moments of hurt and healing, and how sometimes, the people we least expect can help us find our strength. Thank you for listening. It's not an easy story, but it's mine, and I hope by sharing it, it might help someone out there who's feeling lost or unseen. After that night, I realized that things between Claire and me would never be the same. That moment at her engagement party had opened a door, one I hadn't even known was there, into the truth about how she really saw me. But it also revealed something else. Ryan's unexpected words, "You're the judge," echoed in my mind like a challenge, a call to stand up for myself. In the days that followed, I avoided Claire as much as I could. The sting of her words was still fresh, and I wasn't ready to face her, especially since the family was caught up in wedding plans and celebrations. Yet, I couldn't simply disappear. I was her sister, after all, and deep down I wanted things to be different. One afternoon, I found myself sitting alone in a small coffee shop near my apartment, nursing a cup of tea and scrolling through messages on my phone. My mind wandered back to that evening, the way the room had gone silent when Ryan spoke, the look on Claire's face when she realized her joke had backfired. I remembered the weight of all those eyes on me, the unspoken question hanging in the air: what would I do next? It was the first time in a long while that I felt seen, not as a joke or a shadow, but as someone who mattered. I thought about my own life, about how I'd been drifting for years, unsure of who I was or where I belonged. Claire's words had hurt deeply, but Ryan's belief in me sparked something new, a flicker of hope and determination. I decided I wasn't going to let that moment define me, but rather, I would use it to grow stronger. I began by reaching out to a few old friends I hadn't spoken to in a while. I realized I'd been isolating myself, afraid of judgment, but reconnecting brought a warmth I'd missed. One friend, Mia, reminded me of my strengths, the things I'd forgotten, my creativity, my kindness, my resilience. Encouraged, I signed up for a course in graphic design, something I'd always wanted to do but never pursued. It was scary to step into something new, but each class gave me a small victory. Meanwhile, wedding preparations for Claire and Ryan continued, and I started to attend events again, though still cautiously. At one of the pre-wedding dinners, the atmosphere was tense. Claire's friends were there, along with many relatives. I could feel their eyes on me, some curious, some dismissive. I kept my head high, remembering Ryan's words. I refused to let their opinions shake me. During the evening, Claire approached me privately. "You don't have to pretend," she said, her voice low. "We're family, Em. I'm sorry about what I said." Her apology felt sincere, but the damage lingered. "I want things to be better between us," I replied. "But it'll take time." She nodded and walked away. Later that night, Ryan found me on the porch, looking out at the city lights. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said quietly. His words felt like a balm. For the first time, I saw Ryan not just as Claire's fiancé, but as someone who genuinely respected me. Our conversations grew in small moments, shared smiles, supportive words. He never pushed, never took sides openly, but his presence was steady. As the wedding day approached, tension simmered beneath the surface. There were family disagreements, last-minute crises, and emotional outbursts. Through it all, I tried to stay calm and supportive, but it wasn't always easy. On the morning of the wedding, Claire and I had a rare moment alone. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Not just about the wedding, but about us." I reached out and held her hand. "We'll get through it." The ceremony was beautiful, a blend of tradition and personal touches. As Claire walked down the aisle, I felt tears sting my eyes. Despite everything, I was proud of her. When it was my turn to speak during the reception, I surprised everyone by sharing a heartfelt toast. I spoke about family, forgiveness, and the journey we'd all been on. My words were met with smiles and nods, even from those who doubted me. That night, as I watched Claire and Ryan dance, I felt a quiet peace. I knew our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And sometimes, that's enough. After the wedding, life seemed to settle into a new rhythm, but the echoes of what had happened still lingered in the background. Claire and I weren't suddenly best friends, but there was an unspoken understanding between us now, a fragile bridge built from the raw honesty of that engagement night and the healing that followed. Ryan had become a surprising presence in my life. Not just as Claire's fiancé or now husband, but as someone who quietly showed me respect and kindness. His simple words, "You're the judge," had changed the course of everything, and I was starting to realize that sometimes, the people we least expect become our unexpected allies. One afternoon, a few weeks after the wedding, Ryan invited me to join him for coffee. I was hesitant at first, unsure of what he wanted or where this might lead, but I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, away from the buzz of family events. As we sat across from each other, the conversation flowed easily. He asked about my work, my dreams, the things I'd never shared with Claire. It felt strange but comforting, like a window opening into a world I'd kept shut. "I want you to know," he said, "that I see you. Not just as Claire's sister, but as your own person. You're stronger than you realize." His words hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I'd hidden behind the shadows of doubt and judgment, but here was someone telling me he believed in me. That day marked a turning point. I started to find confidence not just in Ryan's words, but in my own voice. I began speaking up more, sharing my ideas and opinions when before I might have stayed silent. At family gatherings, the atmosphere shifted too. People started treating me differently, not always perfectly, but with more respect. One evening, during a small dinner at Claire and Ryan's new home, I found myself engaged in a deep conversation with Claire's aunt, a woman I'd barely spoken to before. She looked at me thoughtfully and said, "You've changed, Emily. There's a light in you now. Don't lose it." Her words warmed me. I realized that the journey I was on wasn't just about repairing family ties, it was about rediscovering myself. Still, not everyone was ready to accept the new me. There were moments when old wounds reopened, sharp comments from distant relatives, cold glances that reminded me I was still the other. But I no longer let those moments define me. Instead, I focused on building my life. I continued my graphic design course and even started taking freelance projects. The sense of accomplishment I felt was addictive, each completed design a small victory over the insecurities that had once held me back. One afternoon, while working on a project in a cafe, I received a call from Claire. "We need to talk," she said. I was nervous but agreed to meet her later that day. When I arrived at her place, she greeted me with a hug. "I'd been thinking a lot about everything, about us, about how I treated you," she began. "I was wrong to mock you. I was jealous, I think, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry." Her apology was heartfelt, and I could see the vulnerability behind her words. "I forgive you," I said softly. "And I want us to move forward." We spent hours talking, sharing memories, and opening up about things we'd never said before. It was a healing moment, one that felt like the beginning of a new chapter. From that day, our relationship grew stronger, built on honesty and mutual respect. Ryan's presence remained steady, but he stepped back, letting Claire and me rebuild our bond without pressure. Looking back, I see how much that moment at the engagement party set everything in motion. Sometimes, a single word or gesture can change the course of a life. For me, Ryan's simple statement, "You're the judge," was more than just a phrase. It was a reminder to believe in myself and to claim my place in the world. As I move forward, I carry that lesson with me. Life isn't perfect, and families are complicated. But with courage and love, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal. And sometimes, the people we think will hurt us the most become the ones who help us find our way home. Life after that conversation with Claire felt like stepping into the sunlight after a long, cold winter. The walls that had once divided us were slowly coming down, brick by brick, replaced with understanding and, surprisingly, laughter. It wasn't easy, there were still moments of tension and awkwardness, but we were healing. Ryan remained a quiet but steady presence throughout it all. His respect for me never wavered, even when others were slow to accept the changes happening between Claire and me. In many ways, he became a bridge, not just between me and Claire, but between two very different worlds. One weekend, Claire invited me to join her and Ryan on a trip out of town, a chance to escape the usual family drama and just enjoy some time together. I hesitated at first, unsure if I was ready for that kind of closeness, but something inside me urged me to say yes. The drive was filled with easy conversation, the kind that reminded me of the sister I used to know before everything got complicated. We stopped at a small lake surrounded by trees, the air crisp and fresh, and spent the afternoon walking and talking. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I belonged, not just in their world, but in my own. That evening, as we sat around a campfire, Claire looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen before. "Thank you, Emily," she said quietly. "For sticking around, for forgiving me." I smiled. "We're sisters. That's what we're supposed to do." Ryan nodded, raising his cup in a silent toast. It was a moment of peace, a promise of better days ahead. But life has a way of testing us just when we feel most secure. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected message from someone I hadn't heard from in years, my childhood best friend, Lily. We had drifted apart after high school, and seeing her name pop up brought a flood of memories. She wanted to meet, to catch up and talk about old times. I wasn't sure what to expect but agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. When I saw Lily, I was struck by how much she had changed, and yet how familiar she still was. Our conversation started light, reminiscing about silly teenage antics, but soon, she confided in me about her struggles with self-doubt and loneliness. It reminded me of how far I'd come, from feeling invisible and mocked to finding my own strength. Lily's visit became a turning point for me, too. It was a reminder that healing isn't just about family, it's about the people we choose to keep close, the relationships that nurture us. As autumn turned to winter, I found myself growing more confident, not just in my relationships, but in myself. I took on bigger projects with my graphic design work and even started volunteering at a local community center, helping others find their own paths. One day, while at the center, I received a call from Claire. Her voice was urgent. "Emily, I need your help," she said. "Something's happened with the wedding plans. Ryan's parents are causing problems." I could hear the frustration and hurt in her voice. Without hesitation, I told her I was on my way. When I arrived at their home, Claire was visibly upset. Ryan's parents had insisted on making last-minute changes that ignored the couple's wishes, trying to control every detail. It was the kind of conflict that could have torn the family apart, but Claire looked to me for support. Together, we talked things through with Ryan's parents, calmly but firmly standing up for what was important to Claire and Ryan. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension, but eventually, compromises were made. That day, I saw firsthand how much my presence mattered, not just to Claire, but to the family as a whole. I wasn't just the sister who had been mocked and dismissed. I was someone who could help hold things together. The experience strengthened my bond with Claire and Ryan and deepened my confidence in my own voice. As winter settled in, I felt a new sense of belonging, not perfect, but real. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. Looking back, I realized that the journey from that humiliating moment at the engagement party to this point had been about much more than family drama. It was about finding strength in vulnerability, about forgiveness and growth. Most of all, it was about discovering that sometimes, the people we think will break us are the ones who help us become who we're meant to be. The winter months were quiet but full of subtle changes. Life wasn't perfect, far from it, but I was learning to navigate a new version of it. One where I was no longer the shadow in my sister's story, but a part of the narrative, a voice that mattered. Claire and I were still rebuilding, taking small steps each day. Our conversations grew deeper, more honest. There was still a lot left unsaid, but we were making progress. Ryan continued to be a steady presence, not just in their marriage but in mine as well. His quiet support, the way he treated me with genuine respect, gave me confidence I hadn't known before. One chilly evening, I found myself alone in my apartment, wrapped in a blanket with a mug of tea. The city lights twinkled outside the window, but inside, I was lost in thought. I thought about how far I'd come, from that moment at the engagement party, when Claire mocked me in front of everyone, to where I was now. The memory still stung, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to stand tall, to own my story. That night, I received a message from Claire. "Can we talk? It's important." My heart raced. I wasn't sure what to expect but agreed to meet her the next day. When I arrived at her place, Claire greeted me with a nervous smile. "I'd been thinking a lot about us, and about the future," she began. "I want to make things right. Not just between us but with the family, too." She went on to explain that she'd been having conversations with her parents, trying to bridge gaps that had formed over the years. They wanted to include me more, to see me as family rather than an outsider. It was a gesture that meant more than words could say. I felt tears prick my eyes. "I want that too," I said. "I want us all to heal." We talked for hours, planning ways to bring the family together, setting boundaries, and building new traditions. It felt hopeful, like a fresh start. A few weeks later, we organized a small family gathering at Claire and Ryan's home. It wasn't perfect, there were still moments of awkwardness and old habits creeping in, but it was a beginning. At one point, Claire's aunt pulled me aside. "You've changed the family, Emily," she said softly. "You've brought something new, something good." Those words warmed me deeply. As spring approached, my own life flourished. My graphic design business grew steadily, and I found joy in the work I was doing. I also started volunteering more, helping others find their confidence, much like I had found mine. One afternoon, Ryan invited me to meet his parents for coffee. I was nervous, not about their acceptance but about stepping into a space that had once felt so intimidating. But the meeting went better than I expected. They were warm and welcoming, even expressing regret for how things had been before. It was a sign that things were truly changing. Looking back, I realized that the journey from that humiliating moment at the engagement party to this point was about more than family drama. It was about learning to forgive myself and others. About standing up when you feel small. And about finding your own worth, no matter what anyone else says. Most of all, it was about love, not just the love between sisters or partners, but the love you give yourself when you finally decide you're enough. As spring blossomed into summer, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened, the pain, the healing, the unexpected allies, and the strength I'd found within myself. The journey from that humiliating moment at Claire's engagement party, when she mocked me in front of everyone, to where I was now, felt like a lifetime. But it was just the beginning of a new chapter. Claire and I had come so far, but our relationship was still evolving. We weren't perfect, and sometimes old wounds resurfaced, but the foundation we'd built was strong. We had learned to communicate openly, to listen without judgment, and most importantly, to support each other's growth. One warm afternoon, Claire invited me over to her house. Ryan was away on a business trip, so it was just the two of us. We sat in the garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and the soft hum of summer life. "I want to thank you," Claire said, her voice sincere, "for everything you've done, not just for me but for this family. I was selfish before. I didn't see how my words hurt you, how I pushed you away." I reached out and took her hand. We both had our struggles. But I'm glad we're here now. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Me too. That day, we talked about the future, about family gatherings where I was truly welcome, about shared holidays, and about creating memories without the shadows of the past. It felt like hope made real. Ryan returned a few days later, and I could see the relief on Claire's face as she introduced me again, this time with genuine pride. Our family life wasn't without challenges, of course. Old habits sometimes crept back in, and there were moments when I questioned if I truly belonged. But each time, I reminded myself of Ryan's words, the phrase that had changed everything, "You're the judge." Those words became my mantra, a reminder to trust my own worth, to stand tall even when others doubted me. In the months that followed, I continued to grow in ways I never imagined. My graphic design business flourished, and I began mentoring young women who, like me, struggled with self-doubt and family conflicts. Helping others find their voices became a passion, a way to turn my own story of pain and resilience into something meaningful. One evening, at a community event I was hosting, I saw Claire and Ryan in the crowd. They smiled and waved, their support unwavering. I realized then that my journey wasn't just about healing old wounds, it was about embracing the future with courage and love. As the night ended, I stood outside beneath a sky full of stars, feeling a deep sense of peace. I had faced humiliation and rejection, but I had also found strength, forgiveness, and belonging. My sister had mocked me once, but I had become more than that moment. I was the judge of my own story, and I was proud of the woman I'd become.